Hey, looks like we are live. My name is Manny Wolf. I am the owner, founder, operator, and guy who lives and dies by the success of Godzilla Marketing Agency. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about sales. Specifically, we're going to talk about how there's a new opportunity right here, right now, for you to become a great salesperson without any of the stuff that you probably hate about sales. What am I talking about? Well, what do we hate about sales? Typically, we hate that it's pushy. We don't like being sold to. We don't like the feeling of being in a conversation where we can feel the agenda of the salesperson. We don't like somebody in one of my programs several years ago put it like this. He described the old school selling techniques as having to checkmate people into a close. And I loved that. That always stuck with me. Now, if you ever have bought a used car or a new car for that matter, let's see who else is like that. Appliances, any of those kind of like prototypical, stereotypical places and environments where you might expect to find old school sales, right? Door to door, any of that stuff. Most of us, that's our experience with sales and selling. And so naturally, most of us don't like that. And for many, many years, the philosophy that underpinned training salespeople and helping people get better at sales was simply how to get better at going through that process, that very difficult process where you're just being ground down to a fucking paste, right? By the guy or the girl who just won't quit until they get the yes. Well, I'm here to tell you that I resisted leaning into sales skills for decades because of that. I started learning sales in the 80s, in like the mid 80s. And there was no such thing as the kind of selling that I'm about to talk about. Even like I started in places like a shoe store. What was another one where I had to learn how to sell? Oh, I did like Kirby vacuums. What else? I did Cutco knives, right? All of this stuff where it was, I got just a little side note. The guy who hired me for Cutco seemed like, what's his name from American Psycho, Christian Bale in American Psycho. Everything was so like weird feeling and fake. And it was like he was trying to use NLP and even hypnosis. It was, I didn't like it. Let's just put it that way. And so people always told me you should go into sales. You'd be great at sales. And I always resisted it because my only model, my only frame of reference for sales was the stuff I had seen. And that's probably the case for you too, if you have a resistance or aversion to selling. Then you've probably heard a lot of what to me always felt like lip service. You hear these people, these sales coaches and trainers saying, well, selling is an exchange of energy. Well, so is getting punched in the face. I mean, if you think about it, right? So calling it an exchange of energy or any of those other sort of like attractive labels that people put on the selling process don't change anything. A punch in the face is still a punch in the face. A kick in the groin is still a kick in the groin. And the good news is it doesn't have to be that way. Not at all. Especially not if you are in some kind of coaching or service provider space. So you might be in fitness or mindset. You might be in just coaching coaches on coaching coaches, right? And though I make a lot of fun of that, that's actually what I do. So I'm a little hypocritical there. The point is, you have a unique opportunity right now today, an opportunity to learn how to sell in a way that is, well, ethical, first of all, that doesn't feel weird. Like, I really am going to show you how to take most of the weird feeling out of most of the interactions. Now, that having been said, I can't control whether or not you get a prospect in your pipeline who's sort of treating you like an old school salesperson. I can help you to overcome that, but I can't stop that. So it's not that it'll go away completely, but I'm going to give you a whole new way to think about it. And that starts with capital T, trust. It starts with trust. And because of the environment you work in, which is, again, coaching of some kind, mentoring, consulting, some sort of providing a service, right? And because of that, and because of the fact that you use social media to get your clients, you have this wonderful, wonderful opportunity to do what I call building trust ahead of time. Now, the thing we most hate about sales typically is the idea of closing, right? And closing is only awful when one of the people on the call, or both, don't want to do it. Would you agree with that? Does that make sense to you? Closing, because you've bought things that you've been happy about before. Just think about it. Whether it was a sandwich and a cup of coffee or a car or I don't know, whatever, right? There have been times where you've engaged with someone and got their help to lead you to a purchase decision, and it felt fine. Why? Well, I can tell you. At the bottom of it, you felt a certain trust. There was a trust present. Now, how do you, as an incredible service provider who, unfortunately, you have all these great skills, but you don't know how to get clients, how do you leverage this trust ahead of time idea in your own business? I'm going to show you. So, one of my world famous line drawings. Normally, sales is thought of if this represents the entire time span, where am I here? From finding out about someone who has something you may want all the way over to making a purchase decision, right? First thing you need to know is that little line I just showed you can be anywhere from one touch to it could be anywhere from one touch point to 14, 15, 20. Like, you don't know. And so part of the old mentality that we all recoil from is this idea that if you engage with a salesperson, they're going to try to corner you and aggressively overcome your objections and all of these things, that you don't like that going in, right? Like, you don't, even if you're not engaged in the sales process with somebody, you already know you don't like that experience. And so what happens? You bring that dislike into the experience. These touch points are the way that you can start to switch out that deep skepticism and resistance with trust. And so touch points for you are content. Now, I highly suggest that you create some sort of a community if you're any kind of a service provider or expert, but you don't have to. You can do this stuff right off of your profile. You can do it through your static funnels, which is what I call the kind of funnels where you've got a bunch of landing pages and email sequences, etc. It's a little harder with those, but you can do it. And the idea here is that at the front, at the very beginning of everything, is your personal brand. I know this is mirror image, at least to me when I'm looking at it, it is. But your personal brand is your strategically crafted way that you show up. Now, I do not ever suggest that you be dishonest in your personal brand. But I do suggest, and I've got, oh, by the way, I'm going to link a training to your personal brand below. So if after you watch this, you're curious about the personal brand stuff, just follow the link below and get to the personal brand training. I'm going to make a note of that here. Whoop, there we go. See, I'm going to link the personal brand training below. But your personal brand is, it's a focal point for people. And it allows them to start deciding how they feel about you long before any purchase decision. So, building trust ahead of time, remember? Okay, you're going to want to stick with me here because while I like these trainings to be short and yet very actionable, this one needs to be a little longer because there's a lot to it. So just bear with me. And if you take notes and you absorb this, you'll make more money. How about that? You will, because you won't hate sales. And if you don't hate sales, that energy goes out into everything you do, and it lowers the inherent resistance of other people. Plus, not only are you lowering their resistance with your energetic shift, but you're also using these touch points and this philosophy of building trust ahead of time. So, again, I'm not going to go into the personal brand stuff here, but I will link it below, and you can binge it for your own whatever, blah, blah, blah. Now, back to this idea of earning trust ahead of time. So you got to do it with content. And what your content wants to have in it are some very simple but very important elements. Now, to the extent that people even have a content strategy, typically it's to hammer how good they are at what they do. And I get it. I understand that impulse, but it is a faulty impulse. And here's why. It is absolutely 100% unequivocally established that human nature is such that if you're showing us only your expertise all the time, and there's somebody standing next to you, figuratively speaking, who's not only demonstrating their expertise, but also sharing their personality, we're going to go with the personality person. We're talking like 95 times out of 100 here. The bias toward choosing somebody that we feel like we like and trust, is monstrous. It's huge. And so if you don't use it in your own kind of personal brand journey and touch point journey for people and your trust building journey, it's like trying to run a race with no shoes. It's like trying to drive a race with no tires. You're going to get your ass lapped, right? Obviously. I hope this is self-evident to you. Focus your energy, your content energy, at least half, if not more, on showing us who you are. See, a lot of things happen when you start sharing real sort of slices of insight into who you are. Trust builds. But another interesting thing happens, which is that not only does trust build, but assumed competence. You know what that is? Assumed competence is we watch you and we assume your competence. Now, for the love of God, have competence. I can't possibly control every variable in who I share this content with. And by the way, this is me. This video represents me doing this with you, right? You may buy from me, you may not. You may hire me, you may not. You may work with me, you may not. But if you do, it's almost certain that by the time we get on a call together, you will already feel a sense of knowing who I am as a person. You're going to know about my values. You're going to know about my ethics, my morals. You're going to know about my likes, right? And this is what I'm talking about. So your content needs to focus, yes, on your expertise, but even more so on your personality. Now, don't go 100% personality, obviously. So there's a ratio, right? And I've always taught that if you have to have a ratio, think of it as 70% personality, 30% expertise. But the point is, you've got to show us who you are. Because if you don't, the people who offer something similar to you, who are showing us who they are, will just beat your ass like the bully on the playground at lunchtime every time. They're just going to crush you. Okay? So understand, we're looking to relate. We want to feel not just that you have the answer to our problem, but that we also can do business with you. This is why all of this talk of long form content is now resurfacing. This is why the personal brand sort of theme is so popular right now, because we've figured out that given the choice between two service providers who have similar level of skill and ability, we're always going with the one who we feel a connection with, always. So remember, what we're talking about here is earning trust ahead of time, right? Or another way I like to think of it is opening So you don't have to worry so much about closing. Opening is building the trust, setting the stage. So your content needs to reflect your personality and your expertise. And a little bit, 5%, can be about the things that you like that aren't business. I talk about Volvos and by extension, Swedish design, of which I am a huge fan. I talk about my dogs. I talk about my coffee. You know what I don't talk about ever is my wife and my family. I leave it off social media. It's just a choice. I'm not saying you have to do the same thing, but what I'm saying is cultivate what you share so that we have a focused idea of who you are and not a broad and confusing idea of who you are. So now you've gotten, let me get a different color here. You've gotten, once you get that, you have, I would say, what is that, like 60% of the process, 70%, whatever that is, right? Once you understand this earning trust ahead of time through strategic content that is an accurate and valid reflection of who you are, you've done most of your sales heavy lifting and you don't even know it and you don't even feel it. And neither do the people who are consuming your content. And that's the beauty of it. It's a way to lower defenses and lower sales resistance by being honest, right? By being yourself. I mean, unless you suck, which you might, I don't know, who wouldn't love that? You see what I'm saying? So now, finally, and only after doing all of this upfront work, and only when you really understand that this whole close them in one idea is not the way to go, right? People who will jump, especially into a high ticket program in one call, are overwhelmingly the same people that will turn on you like that. They're overwhelmingly the same people who will ask for chargebacks and talk bad about you. And yes, even lie about you. And you do need to be careful of that. In our space and in this time, reputation management is important, which brings us back, of course, to what I've been talking about here, right? Real content that gives us a real view into who you are, how you think, how you operate, what your values are. That sets the stage. Then and only then, my friends, can you get into, oh, wow. Okay, so this super expensive artist pen is completely dried out. I wonder if the other side is completely dried out. It is. Into the trash with him. No utility means he's got to go. Let's see if this guy's better. All right, so there we go. Now, with your personal brand stuff and your content stuff, you have done most of the hard work right here, and it's just through the content you post. Next, we get into what I call the trust and permission sales process, or philosophy, perhaps, is a better thing to refer to this as. And so doesn't that sound nice? Wouldn't it be wonderful to be able to do sales based on trust and permission? It is. And typically over a 6-month period, I probably personally close 40 to 50% of people who make it to the enrollment call. Now, take that with a grain of salt, right? Because, I mean, you're going to have slumps, you're going to have highs, and that's why I said over a 6-month period, because I want to give you something sort of real to latch onto instead of some meaningless, I close at 90%. And typically that means on a 1-day rolling average, right? They'll say that based on a really good day they had. But anyway, how does trust and permission work? It works exactly like the name of it sounds. You have earned trust and you ask for permission. So psychologically, one of the big pieces of the sales process that the person being sold to really doesn't like, or rather, it's not that they don't even like it in a way that they're conscious of it, but they feel it and it doesn't feel good. And that is, there's an elephant in the middle of the room from the minute you make contact with a salesperson, right? And the elephant is they're pretending like they're not trying to close you so that they can, turn around and try to close you hard at the end. And you both know it. And so there's this big unspoken discomfort. Here's what I do with that. I set expectations as clearly as I can every step of the way. If we're talking on Facebook and I ask to send you a private message, the first thing you want to know is I asked. I waited to get your permission. If you think that doesn't have an impact on people, you're crazy. You're fucking crazy, and you need to go back to the Grant Cardone school of selling people shit they don't need, because it absolutely matters and it makes a difference. It shows respect for the person. And if you don't think that influences the enrollment process, you're out of your mind. Full stop. Okay. So next, I'm asking for permission every step of the way. I'm being clear about what each step is. So if we move to Messenger, because you've given me permission to, there's one of two reasons we would move to Messenger in a sales capacity. One is you responded to a direct offer that I made, right? And in that case, I would just start the Messenger conversation by saying, I saw that you responded to ... Would you like to talk about it? Again, asking for permission, right? If they say yes, we start to talk about it. If they say no, then I will typically say, no problem. Just so you know, I know that you're in situation X or Y or Z or whatever, and I want you to know I have both free resources that can help you, and I have paid resources. If you're not ready to talk about paid resources yet and paid ways that I can, collapse time and help you get where you're going, maybe I've got a free resource that'll serve you. Are you interested in checking that out? So now they'll say yes or no, right? And if they say no, hey, no problem. No problem. Because there's so much energetic psychology to all of this stuff. If you feel desperate, if you sound desperate, if you bring desperation to the energy that you bring to the conversation, then the game is already over. So if you tell me no in the beginning, I will take no for an answer. Now, I don't necessarily take no for an answer when we're deeper into the process. And the reason why is because I know that once you get into the process and the person knows that this is a conversation that is going to lead to sales and enrollment or not sales and enrollment, right, with me, then the no is almost always a quick and lazy or a quick and evasive way to mask an objection. And I do not ever preach don't overcome objections, but I want you to do it in a way that is more respectful. And so if they say no in the beginning, fine. If you don't want something free, fine. If you do, fine. If you want to talk about what I can do for you, at the paid level, also fine. All three things are fine. What I don't like and don't take for an answer, if it's within my power, is maybe. I don't accept ambiguity, but I'm respectful, right? My thought process here is it's not just your time, it's my time too. And I want to be respected as I give respect in the enrollment process, which takes me back to this whole trust and permission thing, because you will never be respected in the process without demonstrating that you're worthy of respect. So let's say they make it through the Messenger part of my enrollment process. My typical enrollment process goes Messenger, short call, enrollment call. That's how I do it. We get to the short call, and I'm basically going to start the call by clearly stating what my expectations for it are. And that typically sounds something like, I just want you to know this call is not a sales call. There's nothing for sale here, but I don't mean that to say that I don't have things to sell you if it's a good fit. So with your permission, I'd like to ask you a few questions just so we can get further clarity on whether or not I can even help you. And if I think I can, if it starts to feel like, yeah, this is worth a second conversation, I'm going to offer you a second conversation. And if at the end of that conversation, it looks like we should talk about how to work together, we will. Is that okay with you? Just that taking that 10 seconds, 15 seconds to say that or something very, very similar to that changes everything. Because now you've addressed the elephant in the middle of the room. You've done it gently. Now you both know why you're there. They can relax because you have said, if it makes sense to talk about working together, we will. Are you okay with that? You've told them what's coming and asked if they're okay with it. Now, it's funny because this seems so obvious now, but until I kind of figured this out, it was not obvious at all. But what I'm saying to you is ask for permission every step of the way. Take every sort of unknown off the table for the prospect, right? Because I mean, I have signed people that kind of, didn't feel like a good fit, and I didn't really give my trust and permission. I didn't really have it refined at that point. So my point is, I've signed people who weren't a good fit, and it never pans out. It never does. So set up every conversation with clarity in the beginning, right? You both know it's a sales process. So acknowledge it. And then also tell them, when you're in the chat conversation and in the triage call or whatever you want to call it, let them know there's nothing for sale yet. There's nothing for sale here. And there's nothing wrong with you also saying, I need to know if you're a good fit for me too, right? Because any service provider, any consultant, any coach who really is good is going to put their heart and soul into the process. And you do have the right to know if that person's a good fit for you or not. All of that is to say, teeing up the conversation, asking for permission, addressing the elephant in the middle of the room, letting them know what the process looks like. These things, when you mix them with building trust ahead of time, right here, like I've talked about, will dramatically change the way you feel about selling and the way people feel about being sold to by you. Don't forget, if you want to know more about personal branding, I put the link below this. And if you've noticed this ticker tape down below, CCU stands for Client Creation University. Now, I have higher level services and offers too, but the Client Creation University is a way that you can learn all the organic marketing that I've taken 10 years to master for a low membership level price. It is, if you are, well, I don't know when you're going to be seeing this video. So let me just say, it's dirt cheap. It's really dirt cheap is what it is. I don't want to say the price only because it may change. You may see this video in a year. I don't know. And so saying the price is irresponsible. But what I can say is it is it's June 4th, 2024, as I'm recording this. And right now, you can get a year of the Client Creation University for only $5 a day. And if you want to take it quarterly, it's a little more than that, but not too much more than that. And so my point is that you get teaching by me, not a bunch of recorded videos, but teaching by me every week, lecture style. So I'm at the board telling you what to do. You go do it. You come back. We compare results, right? It's all actionable. It's all meant to just solve your client acquisition problems, one module after another, giving you all the ways I've learned over a decade for how to organically get clients from social media. There's a link to the Client Creation University below the link to the personal branding training. Okay? Regardless of whether you sign up or not, I hope, believe, and I'm confident that if you apply this, what you learned here, it'll help you.